Hello and welcome to the Office of the State Engineer's tutorials. This tutorial is a well record and log guide that will assist you in completing your well logs and records, and also to interpret them if you're looking at one that's already been completed. If you have any questions after you watch this video, you can contact the Office of the State Engineer's Statewide Projects Group. This is our contact information for Jerry, Sheldon, and Vioma, but you can really ask anybody that answers the phone at the district offices as well. We're located in Santa Fe. So this training is information that is in Title 19 of the New Mexico Administrative Code. It's in Chapter 27, Part 4, regarding well driller licensing, construction, repair, and plugging of wells. It delineates when a well driller license is required, the well construction requirements, and all the details that must be included in the well record under 19.27.4.29 under subsection N. This is page 1 of the well record and log, and it gives the basic information. You should be able to look at the information on the front page and actually draw a picture of what the well looks like with the information that's contained therein. I'll go into details in each of the sections, but right now I just wanted to show you the general information. Page 2 gets into the color and type of material encountered. This is the subsurface information and the hydrogeologic information. We ask that the well driller mark whether the strata that they have drilled through is water bearing or not, and to estimate the yield of the water bearing zone as the driller is drilling through it. And then at the bottom, they put the method by which they use to estimate the yield, and if there's any well testing, discharge, pump tests, anything, they would include that information. Also, in addition to completing this form, that additional information would be submitted. And then at the bottom, they would print or type in the name of the drill rig supervisors that provided the on-site supervision of the well construction, if it's somebody that's other than the licensee. And then the driller will print and sign their name and date the log. Well login record is located on the well driller form page, which is under the statewide projects group header. And if you scroll down, the well record and drilling log is located here under the well construction forms, and it is form number WR20, which is the well record and drilling log. Under subsection N of 1927-429, these are some of the pieces of information that are important. The well record and log must be filed with us no later than 30 days after the well is completed. There is no filing fee to submit this form, but it must be submitted on time. The well record should be submitted in triplicate. Some of the districts may say they only need it in duplicate, so you can take the third copy stamped back with you if you would like to do that. You can make copies of the well record after you have properly completed it. These are not notarized documents, so they can be copied and then signed. The well record form should have the following sections completed, or the well record is considered to be incomplete and returned to the well driller. These are the contents that must be contained on the well record. The OSE pod number, which is the well number. A pod is a point of diversion, and so we want the well number. Well numbers these days have a suffix. Back in the day, OSE file number, or what is the water right file number, and the well number were the same, and that became problematic and confusing. So the well record should include both the OSE pod number and the file number regarding the permit that you are drilling for. You would also need to include the well tag ID number if you have installed one and one was issued to you with the permit. Every permit these days is issued a well tag ID number, except temporary wells that are going to be plugged in. We need the well location from your GPS or your smart device. It must be accurate to 5 meters or to the nearest tenth of a second in latitude and longitude. We need the date the drilling started and ended, the depth of the completed well in feet, and the depth of the borehole. If you backfill the borehole, that would be where those would differ. So the depth to water first encounter is one of the pieces of information, and whether the well is artesian, shallow, or dry. You also must put the static water level in completed well. That should be taken a good amount of time after the well is completed to allow the water to regulate itself and get to static water level. The borehole diameter in inches. We need inside diameter of the casing and also the thickness of the casing wall. That information is also asked for on the well log. Description of the annular seal and the method of placement, whether the well is screened or slotted and at what intervals and what size are the slots. We also need a description of the gravel pack, if there was any, the color and type of the material encountered during drilling. And we also need the driller to sign the completed well record. So again, at the top of the form, you'll see to the left is the OSC pod number, which is the well number, and the OSC file number, which is the water right file number, and that is off to the right. In the middle is the well tag ID number. You would get the well owner names and their address of where you drilled the well from the permit. This information, the well location, must be taken from your GPS. We do not provide that to you. We only provide you where the applicant thinks that the well will be drilled, but we actually want the driller to provide us with the latitude, longitude, degrees, minutes, and seconds where the well actually was located. And underneath that, you would put cross sections of if it's at an intersection or so many miles from this corner, just to not only refer to it yourself, but to allow us to locate the well as well. This is an example of the well ID tag. We began in distributing tags with the permits back in 2017. The permit issued will have a condition that the well driller must install the well tag. The driller must be given the conditions and the tag when they're hired to drill, and subsection M, rather, of 1927-429 requires that the well driller attach the well ID tag. And as I said, they're not required for monitoring wells, but if it's an exploratory well that will soon become a production well, you may be issued a tag to install on that completed well with the permit as well. This is what the well tag ID looks like. This is a stainless steel zip tie. You don't have to be fancy when you're installing it. I've seen some that use little screws to install it, as long as you don't jeopardize the integrity of your casing installing the well tag. We would prefer that you put the well tag on the north side of the well so that it's protected by the UV rays. They're supposed to outlast it, but the UV rays are getting more and more intense. So put that tag number that was installed on the well tag, that number should be put onto the well record and log. As again, like I said, the well location is a must and it is required. Your well driller must have obtained a latitude, longitude, degrees, minutes, and seconds while they're out there. But you may also, in that common description, put the section, township, and range if it's possible. This is where you will put the driller's license number and the name of the licensed driller, not the drill rig supervisor. And then you will also enter the name of the well drilling company to the right. Then on the next line, the date the drilling started and the date the drilling has ended. Make sure to check the date on your permit and make sure you did not start drilling on an expired permit, because that can be a reprimandable offense. And this is where you get into the hydrogeologic log of where you have drilled through, and this will be where you put the feet, how many feet that you've drilled through, and the color and type of material, and whether or not the strata was water bearing, and then the estimated yield for the water bearing zones. And this info must match the information on the back of the well record we get from the front of the well record. We look at whether or not the screening is in the water bearing zone. And so again, back to page 1, we want both the depth of water first encountered to see if it's under pressure, the static water level, if it rises appreciably in the hole. That driller should have called the office and completed this well as an artesian well. And so this is where you mark artesian, dry hole, and shallow. A well is considered artesian when the depth in column A is considerably greater in depth than the static water level, which is shown here in B. So again, the borehole diameter for the first 20 feet of a non-artesian well must be at least 4 inches larger than the outside casing diameter to allow at least 2 inches of annular space and grouting around the casing. If the borehole is less than 4 inches than the outer diameter of the casing, then the well must be pressure grouted. If you don't want to pressure grout, and most drillers don't, then the first 20 feet of the borehole must be at least 4 inches larger than the outermost casing diameter. This is section 2, the drilling and casing information. Here, the staff will look at the inside diameter of the casing, and we add to that the casing wall thickness, which would be on both sides of the casing, and the combination of the two, the borehole must be 4 inches larger than the casing wall thickness or any casing connection type. If the driller is using couplers, you must include the diameter of the coupler as well. And so the borehole diameter for the first 20 feet, and we're talking from 0 ground surface to 20 feet below ground surface, that's where the 4-inch larger requirement comes in. Below 20 feet for a non-artesian, we do not dictate how large that borehole must be. But again, the driller must meet industry standards in order to get the gravel packed down the hole and have it not bridge. So again, we are looking for the diameter of the casing, and most wells that are drilled under the domestic permit must be no greater than 7 inches unless a variance has been issued. So always check your permit conditions to make sure if your driller has installed a casing larger than 7 inches, that must have been done under a variance. So be sure and check the conditions of the permit to confirm. The slot size of the screened casing is off to the right-hand side here. We want the solid casing and the slotted casing to be shown on different lines, and I'll show you an example of that here in a moment. Here it is. And so this is a great example. So this is a shallow well, unconfined. Now the new form asks for the date that the static water level was measured so that we can see how much time has passed since the well has been completed. That must be checked off there. If you are installing a pitless adapter in the job, check this box too. This is a new box on the 2022 form thing. This is an example of a cased well that has a screened interval from 1.5 feet above ground surface, because your casing must extend above ground surface. And this is actually describing your casing. Your casing goes from 1.5 above ground surface to 20 feet below ground surface, because these depths are actually in feet below ground surface. The borehole was 12.25 and inside diameter is 6.3 and the casing wall is 0.39 and the upper portion has no slots. The first 20 feet solid casing. And so the next line down is going from 20 feet to 340 feet. This is solid casing. And from 340 feet to 380 feet is where it's slotted. And it shows the size of the slots of the screened interval. So we know now this is a solid cased well down to 340, and then it's got screened interval from 340 to 380. This is an example of a well screen and how the gravel pack is put in, and a naturally developed well that does not have gravel packs. Not every well driller puts in a gravel pack, especially if they're drilling into competent rock. So well screens, as I said, are not always required. If residential wells are set into solid bedrock, they typically do not need a well screen. Usually well screens are for unconsolidated sediments, which are sand and gravel. Hand-cut slots are acceptable. Slot size is selected by determining the size of the sand or the gravel, but we do not dictate the slots and how they're selected. Any sealant that a well driller uses must be from the list of approved sealants. Annular seals must be from the ground surface to 20 feet below ground surface in the annular space. If there is a pitless adapter, then the annular seal does not go to ground surface, and be sure and indicate that. This is down here at the bottom is where you're putting your annular material. If the well has a pitless adapter, you're not going to be able to seal that casing all the way to ground surface. So the depth may be 4 feet below ground surface. Most pitless adapters are at least 3 feet, and the annular seal must begin 1 foot below your pitless adapter. And again, you will check off on that front page whether or not you have a pitless adapter, and that will explain to staff whether or not we expect that seal to go to ground surface. And then if there is one, then take the annular seal 20 feet below wherever it starts. So if you start at 4 feet below, take it down to 24 feet. Anything below 20 feet must be trimming. And that would be here indicated here by the method of placement, whether or not it's poured or trimmed. Anything below 20 feet, whether plugged or sealant, must be either trimmed or pressure grouted. Again, this is an example of a well record. This is not correct. There is no concrete may be used as an approved sealant. The approved sealants are listed here to the left of the PDF on our website showing the list of approved sealants. And over here, the first 3 columns are for non-artesian. Then the next 5 columns are for artesian wells. And then the last ones are for special conditions, either dry holes or ground source heat pumps. And this list was updated most recently in 2020. Annular seal and placement, it may be unconsolidated and you have to excavate an area around it in order to get your annular seal. But we still expect the outermost casing, your surface casing, to be sealed and the well record and log to indicate that. A well design, like I said, with a pitless adapter, surface seal will not go to ground surface because this pitless adapter must be accessible for plumbing reasons. Again, this can be anywhere from 3 to 4 feet below ground surface here in New Mexico. It can get deeper elsewhere, but 3 feet is usually the norm. And this is the back page of the well log, which is basically giving us a picture of what the subsurface looks like. We should be able to take the information and draw not only the well, but we should be able to draw what the subsurface geologic information looks like. At the bottom of the page 2 is sections 5 and 6. This again is where we would expect to see test results of any well testing, discharge method, start time, stop time, and a table showing discharge and drawdown if you're doing a pump test, and any miscellaneous information if you had any problems on the well and you want to indicate that. If you had problems with getting the landowner to allow you to complete the well, you would put your information in this miscellaneous information. Here you print the names of the drill rig supervisors that were on site providing supervision. And down here at the bottom, signature of the well driller that can be electronically signed. But if it comes to us unsigned, it's considered incomplete. And then print the name and then date it. This is an old well log. If we get anything on the old form, we consider that to be invalid right away, especially if it's missing vital information such as latitude and longitude, or it does not clearly indicate where the well was screened. This is an example of a really great well log. Everything is completed, gives lots of information, and latitude and longitude provided in degrees, minutes, and seconds. Again, if we get an incomplete or incorrect well log, will be returned to you, and we expect it to be returned within 30 days. It's important for us to have a completed well record because we're trying to determine where our water resources are in the state. The OSC database and the well records and logs and our hydrology reports rely on completed well records and with the best information you can provide. Here is where the public and well drillers can go to get depth of water reports. This gives water column and average depth to water reports, and it's based on locations that you provide us and information that's provided on the well record. This is used by everybody, including federal and state agencies as well. We have an OSC map of aquifer tests, so any other aquifer tests that you provide become part of this database, and well drillers can look to this map to see if there's been any previous aquifer tests done in an area if they've never drilled before. And this information is accessible. The index to the aquifer tests and the data is on our website under the Hydrology Bureau. This is the table that relates to all of the aquifer tests that show us in a quick fashion how to look for different aquifer tests in different section, township, and ranges within the state. The aquifer mapping program also relies on well records in our database, and they also provide us with information whenever they have completed a mapping project. So the completed projects were shown in blue here, and current projects, which may have already been completed, are in red. You can go to the the Bureau of Geology Aquifer Mapping Program and get a lot of information as well. And you can look up their detailed reports in certain aquifer areas. They are also reaching out to the public to get new wells to add to their network. So if somebody contacts you and tells you that their well is going dry, before they come to the state engineer, they can go to the Bureau of Geology Aquifer Mapping Program and they can see if their well is a viable well to become part of the network of wells that are measured real time across the state in order to provide the state with more up-to-date, real, to-the-minute information as to what's happening in the aquifers. They are also helping to collect information on dry wells in the state. So anybody who contacts you regarding getting a well replaced, you can go to the OSE pod location map, and we have a link to report a dry well. It's right here in the middle of the splash screen before you check off that you agree to the terms and conditions and click OK. You can click on that report a dry well link and go there, and it will help them to start building an idea, especially with the mega drought that's ongoing, to see where the areas are under stress and distress and may be able to get some help to the communities there. This is the form that once you click on that button, this is all they ask is, who are you? Provide your email address and the location of the well. Boom. That's it. That's all they want to know. And that concludes my training for the well records and logs. Again, click subscribe and ring the bell for notifications to our channel whenever there are new tutorials uploaded, and you'll be notified. Thank you and have a great day.